This incident happened to Sarah when she was 16 years old and living in Texas, USA. At that time, she was obsessed with horror stories, horror movies, and horror novels. She would often go on YouTube to watch popular horror channels, never thinking that something like what she read in the stories or saw in the movies would happen to her. Her story begins one summer day when Sarah was home alone because her parents had gone to work. She had nothing to do since she was on vacation. Most of the time, Sarah would invite her friends over to hang out or sometimes go out with them. But on the day this incident happened, she didn't leave the house at all because her friends were either out of town or busy. Sarah didn't mind and decided to spend the day alone. She turned on the air conditioning and sat her day with her phone. After a while, she started to feel hungry, so she ordered delivery. She took advantage of the fact that no one was home because her parents hated delivery food due to some things they had read online about the dangers of fast food. But of course, Sarah didn't pay attention to that and used every chance to order food from outside. After she placed her order, she opened the app to track the delivery. The driver was just picking up the food from the restaurant. Sarah asked the driver to leave the food at the door since she had paid for everything with her card. This was a common practice, as many people preferred to avoid direct contact with the delivery person. The driver would mark the order as delivered, and often they would either knock on the door or ring the bell to confirm that the order had arrived. After a while, Sarah received a notification that the driver had picked up her order and was on his way. Soon after, she got another notification that the driver was near her street. She started getting ready to pick up her food as soon as she received the notification that it had arrived. But unfortunately, what happened that day was different from any other day. Sarah heard the sound of a car door opening and closing, followed by footsteps approaching her door. Then, nothing happened. She found it strange that the driver didn't ring the bell, knock on the door, or even send a message through the app. Sarah got up from the couch, went to her room, and looked out the window. She saw a car in front of the house, confirming that the driver was still there. She reopened the app and saw that the driver hadn't sent any message. Looking out the window again, she saw the driver standing in front of the door, then stepping back a few steps and looking at the house window. The man looked tall, with messy hair and scary eyes. Sarah quickly moved away from the window. A few seconds later, she heard 3 knocks on the door. Fear and anxiety gripped her as she stood in her room, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, the man started banging on the door with all his might. Repeatedly, Sarah called out to him, "Just leave the food at the door and go." But the banging continued, louder and stronger, as if he was using his foot instead of his hand. Sarah quickly ran to the balcony and saw that the man was indeed kicking the door as if he wanted to break it down. Gathering her courage, she shouted, "What are you doing? Didn't I tell you to leave the food at the door and go?" She tried to sound strong and unafraid, but her hands were shaking with fear. The driver responded, "Open the door, Sarah, it's better for you." This terrified Sarah even more, because it was clear that the man was crazy and had bad intentions. She realized that he intended to kill her. After saying that, he started kicking the door with all his might, until it couldn't withstand the force and broke open. Sarah ran towards the stairs and saw the man standing there, looking terrifying with eyes full of anger. Without thinking much, she ran to the nearest room, which was her parents' bedroom, and locked the door. She kept her eyes on the door, hearing the man destroying things in the apartment. After a while, everything went silent, and Sarah thought he had left after taking what he wanted. Suddenly, she heard the doorknob turning and the man's voice saying calmly, "Open the door. Don't be afraid. I won't torture you. I'll kill you quickly without you feeling a thing." His words filled Sarah with even more terror, but she tried to calm herself down. She opened the closet and found her father's baseball bat, holding it tightly as she stood behind the door, waiting for the man to enter. The man pulled out a knife and opened the door. Sarah, standing in place and trembling, struck him on the head with all her strength as soon as he entered. Blood started flowing from his head as he screamed loudly, holding his head in pain. Without wasting any time, Sarah ran out of the room, down the stairs, and out of the house to her neighbor's place, where she called the police. 5 minutes later, the police arrived, but the man had fled before they got there. They took Sarah's description of the man, suspecting he was involved in the serial murders of young girls in the state. After Sarah's incident, an article appeared online, stating that 3 girls had been killed by a delivery driver. Since then, Sarah has lived in fear and anxiety, especially since the man hasn't been caught yet. Every other day, the news reports another girl killed, making Sarah too scared to stay home alone. If she does, she always keeps her father's license gun in her hand, ready to protect herself.